Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to MJ's Maths and Stats. That's MJ Magic Studio to you. I am your host, your dost, and as always in the ghost mode, Mohit Jain. And today in this session, we will discuss actual question asked in section 1 of Infosys online assessment test, that is reasoning ability. They call it reasoning ability, but majority of the questions are from data interpretation and analytical reasoning. Analytical reasoning like data sufficiency, deductive logic, and a few questions we have seen from blood relation and puzzles. So let's solve these questions. These were asked on 13th June on different screens pan India. I've collected few questions for this session and let's see what different questions were asked. So let's begin now. In a batch of 400 students, the height of students is given in the following graph. Find the percentage of student whose height is less than 170. Less than 170 is this mark. The number of people who are less than 170 are 150, 88 and 70. That is 308. So percentage should be 308 by 400 into 100, that is 7 times 28 and then 28. 77%. 77% of the student have height less than 170 centimeter. Option A fits in. The following table shows how a student spends his pocket money, which is rupees 1000, during a course of a month. Calculate his savings. And according to the table, savings are 15%. So 15% of 1000 is 150 is his savings, and that is in option C. The number of absentees in class 9 was recorded in a particular week. Find the average of number of students that were absent on Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. So from the graph we can see Monday 120 students were absent, Wednesday 150 and Saturday 75. So sum up 5, 14, 1, 345. We need the average. And we know the average is total divided by the number of observation, that is 3. So it would be 115. So on an average on these 3 days, 115 students were absent. Option A fits in. The following table shows the number of people visiting 4 different malls and the percentage of men, women and children visiting those malls. What is the average number of women visiting all malls together? Okay, we just need to first find out how many females are visiting these individual malls. First one would be 34750 into 54%. I'm using calculator value. That will give me 18765. From the second mall, 49450 into 66% will give 32637. From mall C, we'll get 67850 into 36%, 24426. And from D, it would be 42350 into 70%, that would be 29645. This total would be 29645 plus 24426 plus 32637 plus 18765 will give 105473. Now we need the average. So average would be 105473 divided by 4, and that equals 26,368.25, exact value given in option A. The bar graph shows the export and imports of a country for 4 years. What is the average trade deficit for a year? Trade deficit means imports minus exports. Import is this blue bar and export is this gray bar. So for 2017, import minus export is 500 minus 350, that is 150. For 2018, 800 minus 700 is 100. For 2019, 1200 minus 1020, that is 180. And for 2020, 900 minus 930 is minus 30. So if we need to find the average, we first need to find the total of this. 1, 2, 3, 430 minus 30 is 400. So for average of 4 years would be 400 by 4, that is 100. And that is in option C. The histogram shows the net exports for a country for different years. If the imports for the year 2015 and 2016 were the same, let it be X, then by how much did the exports change during this period? Now exports means net exports plus import. So exports in 2015 were net exports 14 plus X, and exports in 2016 were minus 36 plus X. We are looking out for the change in exports. Change in exports means export of 2016 minus exports of 2015. That is minus 36 plus X minus 14 minus X, and we get minus 50. It decreases by 50 units. Decreased by 50, option B fits in. The frequency polygon shows the interest rate offered by two companies for different years. That is A and B. A is red and B is blue. A man invests a total of 90,000 in two companies in 2017 and received a total interest of 8200 for a year. How much did he invest in company B? Suppose he invests X units in company B. Company B in 2017, that is blue line, is giving 10%. So this one would be the interest received. Plus 90,000 minus X is invested in company A, and company A is giving 8%, that is red mark, into 8 by 100. This is equals to 8200. 10x minus 8x is 2x, plus 7,20,000, that is 90,000 into 8, equals 8,20,000. Therefore 2x is 1 lakh, x equals to 50,000. 50,000 is invested in company B in 2017, that is in option A. The pie chart shows the proportion of expenditure by a country on different sports. If the expenditure on tennis is 0.36 million more than cricket, then what is the total expenditure? The total expenditure is X. Expenditure in cricket is 12%, and expenditure in tennis is 16%. That means difference is 4%. That means 4x by 100, 4% is 0.36 million. 0.09. That means total expenditure is 9 million. But here all answers are in billions. We know that 1000 million is equals to 1 billion. Therefore 9 million will be equals to 9 by 1000 billion. That would be 0.009 billion. And that is in option C. The table shows the number of employees joining and leaving their respective departments in the given period of time. In which year did most number of employees leave the company? Left, 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 left. We just need to add up. 5, 15, 1, 7 and 9, 13 and 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. 10, 18, 1, 7, 7, 14, 1, 2, 5 and 3, 8. 5, 5, 10, 1, 6, 7, 12, 18, 1, 3, 3, 6 and 8. 4, 4, 8, 0, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 1, 3, 4 and 4 is 8. 880. The most number of people, the maximum number of people leave these 4 companies together in year 2017. Option C fits in. Okay, question now from data sufficiency. Here, a question is given which is followed by 2 statements. We need to decide whether the data provided in the statements are sufficient to answer the question. We don't need the answer to the question. We just need to find whether data is sufficient to answer the question or not. Question here is, in how many ways a word can be arranged in such a way that vowels always come together? We know the formula for that is n minus g plus 1 into factorial g. Now what is g? G here would be number of vowels which are coming together, and n is total alphabets in the word, total letters in the word that are there, not alphabets, basically total letters. Now statement 1 says the word has 3 vowels. Okay, we have the value of g, but what about n? That means statement 1 alone is not sufficient. Statement 2 says the word has 5 consonants, which is actually n minus g. But what about g? That means statement 2 alone is also not sufficient. But if I combine these two, I can find the value of n. Here g is 3 and n is like 5 plus 3, that is 8. So can I answer now? Yes, I can answer now. But tell me one thing, what if these 5 consonants which the word have are repetitive? It may be C, B, C, D, F. These are 5 consonants, but out of these 2 are repetitive. Where is the evidence that the word, the letters in this given word are non-repetitive? There is no evidence for that. That means data is insufficient. Hence, data is not sufficient enough for us to answer, isn't it? Both statement 1 and 2 together are not sufficient to answer the question. Option D fits in. Given below is a question followed by 2 statement, again a question from data sufficiency. Let's read the question. Each of the 3 person ABC belongs to a different category among truth tellers who always speak the truth, or liars who always lie, and the third category is alternators who make true and false statement alternatively. So out of these 3, one is truth teller, one is a liar, and one is alternator. Question is, who among them is the truth teller? We just need to identify who is the truth teller. Statement 1 says, A said, I am a truth teller, B is a truth teller. If A is actually a truth teller, then the second statement should also be true, which is opposite of the first statement. So statement 1 says, A is not a truth teller. Now we will have a doubt for B and C. We have confusion among B and C, who is the truth teller. Now if I take statement 2, B said, I am a liar, A is a liar. If B is a truth teller, then he can never say, I am a liar. Isn't it? Because if B is a truth teller, both the statements should be correct. He can't say, I am a liar. That means statement 2 says that B is not a truth teller. Now we have confusion among then who would be the truth teller? It may be A or C. That means either statement alone are not sufficient to answer this. But if I combine these two statements, this says A is not a truth teller and this says B is not a truth teller, then obviously if we combine both the statement, it is sure that C is the truth teller. Our question is only to identify the truth teller, and C will become the truth teller if both the statements are combined together. I'll go with option B. Both statement 1 and 2 together are necessary to answer this question. Okay, another one from data sufficiency. Let's read the question straight away. What is the area of an isosceles right angle triangle? We have an isosceles right angle triangle. That means these two sides bearing the right angle are same. This is x, this is x. Then hypotenuse automatically will become root 2x. Then area of this triangle is nothing but x square by 2. Statement 1 says perimeter of triangle is this. Now perimeter of triangle would be 2x plus root 2x, that is x root 2 common, root 2 plus 1, and that is given as 10 root 2 into root 2 plus 1. Yes, we can very easily find the value of x and we can find the area. That means statement 1 alone is sufficient. Now let's go to statement 2. The hypotenuse of the triangle is 10 root 2. That means root 2x is equals to 10 root 2, root 2x. That also gives x is equals to 10. From here also we can find the area. That means statement 2 alone is also sufficient to answer the question. Let's check the option. Option B says either statement 1 alone or statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, and that seems to be correct. Option B fits in. Okay, another question from data sufficiency, and we know the drill for it. A question is given, two statements are given, we need to identify whether we would be able to answer that question or not. Now question here is, what is the value of smallest number among 4 consecutive even numbers? Let the 4 consecutive even numbers are a plus 2, given that a is even, okay, a belongs to even number, then a plus 4, and then a plus 6. These are the 4 consecutive even numbers. We need the value of a. Statement 1 says the sum of 4 numbers is 132. Let's see. If we add up these 4, we'll get 4a plus 12 equals 132. That means 4a is 120, and we can find the value of a, that is 30. That means the smallest number is 30. We can find the answer using statement 1 alone. Now statement 2 says the difference between the smallest and the largest number among them is 6. It says that a plus 6 minus a is 6. We know that it is 6. It would be true for any value of a. Using the statement 2 alone, we cannot find the value of a because statement 2 is the correct statement for any value of a in that case. Take any 2, 4, 6, 8. The difference between first and the fourth one will be always 6. That means statement 2 alone is not sufficient enough to answer our question. Let's see where it is. Yes. In option D, it says statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer, while statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. I'll go with option D. One more from data sufficiency. Let's read the question directly. There are 30 bananas in each box. How many bananas are there in all the boxes together? If we know that how many boxes are there, we can very easily find the answer. Let the number of boxes are x, then the answer to this question is 30x. We are looking out for the value of x, whether we would be able to find the value of x or not with the given statement. Statement 1 says the weight of each empty box is 1 kg, but it doesn't reveal the fact that how many boxes do we have. Statement 1 alone is not sufficient. Statement 2 says, the number of bananas in all the box together is 30 times the total number of boxes. That means statement 2 says the number of banana are 30x, and we know the number of bananas are 30x, but we are looking out for the value of x, but there is no value of x in statement 2 even. Both the statement combined also are not sufficient to find the answer. I'll go with both statement 1 and 2 together are not sufficient to answer the question. Option C fits in. Question of data sufficiency. Let's read the question straight away. At present, the age of Ram and Shyam is in the ratio 5:6. It is known fact. What is the age of Ram? What is the present age of Ram? Maybe if we can get the age of Shyam, we can find the age of Ram, or directly if we can find the age of Ram. Statement 1 says, at present, the respective ratio of Shyam and Mohan is 3:4. So if I clap this information, Shyam is 3:4, what I can get is the ratio of ages of Ram, Shyam and Mohan. That would be 15:18:24. But no age of Ram can be discovered. Statement 1 alone is not sufficient. Now, if I take only statement 2, 5 years hence, the ratio of Ram and Mohan will be 2:3. Now we have got Ram and Shyam, that is 5x and 6x. And if we combine statement 2 with this, 5 years hence, age of Ram and Mohan, from where this Mohan comes into picture now? Current age of Mohan is Z, because we don't have statement 1 with us, we have only statement 2. So from here also, identifying the age of Ram is not possible. Statement 2 alone is also not sufficient. Let us see, can we combine these two and find the age? If we combine these two, we know that ratio of Ram, Shyam and Mohan is 15:18:24. And it says that 5 years hence, ratio of Ram and Mohan would be 2:3. So we can find this. Now 15x plus 5 upon, for Mohan it is 24. 24x plus 5 is equals to 2/3. After solving this, we can find the value of x. 45x plus 15 equals 48x plus 10. That means 5 is equals to 3x. We can find the value of x, that is 5/3. Then age of Ram is 15x. 15 into 5/3, that is 25. We can find the value of age of Ram if we combine both the statement. That is in option C. Both statement 1 and 2 together are necessary to answer the question. Option C fits in. Okay, one more from data sufficiency. Let's go straight away to the question. How many among a group of 20 person like both cricket and hockey? So I can plot like this. We have a group of 20 person. Few like cricket, few like hockey. Cricket and hockey. We are looking out for this portion. Number of people who like both cricket and hockey. Statement 1 says, let's see what statement 1 says. This is what we actually have. Statement 1 says, among them 15% like at least one among cricket and hockey. At least one means C union H. At least one means this total section is 15. From this, we can say that the number of people who does not like playing either cricket or hockey is 5. That is quite easily we can calculate. But what is the value of C intersection H which we are looking out for? We are looking out for C intersection H, can't be answered. Statement 1 alone is not sufficient enough. Let's go to statement 2 now. This is true for statement 2. Before starting statement 2, among them 10% like cricket, C10, and 8% like hockey. Now from this piece of information also, this particular section C intersection H is not identifiable. We cannot find this value. Statement 2 alone is also not sufficient. Let's combine both the statement and see. Can we find the answer? This is the information we have. Now, statement 1 says this is 5. Statement 2 says this is 10 and this is 8. And it also says that this combined is 15. Yes, we can find the value of intersection because C union H, that is 15, equals C plus H minus C intersection H. That means C intersection H would be equals to 3. We would be able to find the answer. How many of them like both cricket and hockey? And that answer is 3. That fine enough. That fair enough. We don't need the actual answer. We just need whether we can find the answer or not. Yes, we can find the answer if we combine both the statement together. Both statement 1 and 2 together are necessary to answer this question. I'll go with option C. Given below is a question followed by 2 statement. Okay, again this is a data sufficiency. Let's read the question straight away. 5 persons are standing in a row facing north, not necessarily in the same order. Facing north means your right will be their right and your left would be their left. That is why it's written facing north. Is R standing in the middle of the row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is R standing here? That is the question. Statement 1 says S is 2 places away to the right of R. That means we can have to the right of R 2 places away, and then we can have S. We can have this order of standing. We can have R 2 places and S. We can have this order of standing. Fair enough, because there are only 5 people. S is 2 places away to the right of R. This is R and this is his right side. That means S is either at this point, or if R is at the second point, then S is at this point. Either of them is correct. We can say R is not standing at the center. We can say R is not standing at the center, because question is simply, is R standing in the middle? No, R cannot stand in the middle if S is 2 places away to the right of R. Statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer this question. Now look at statement 2. P is 3 places away from Q. P 1, 2, 3 Q, or Q 1, 2, 3 P. Statement 2 will give this data formation which will not help us in finding or locating the position of R. Statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer this. Option C fits in, which says statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Statement C or option C is correct. Okay, a question from data sufficiency which says that there is a question followed by 2 statements numbered 1 and 2. You have to decide whether the data provided in the statements are sufficient to answer the question. They are not looking for the answer of the question, they are looking for whether the statement provided, with that you can answer the question or not. Read both the statement and give your answer. Now this is the question. What percentage of 100 employees in a company earns more than rupees 100 per day. First statement says every employee earns either rupees 100 or rupees 200 per day. But this statement doesn't give us any clue how many are earning out of 100 rupees 100 and how many are earning out of 100 employees rupees 200. That means statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Now statement 2 says total earning of 100 employees per day is 13,800. But again, there is no evidence about how many people are there earning what amount. Because from here, we can only find the average earning, and the average earning of 100 people would be 138. That means statement 2 alone is also not sufficient to answer this question. Let us combine both the statement. If I combine both the statement, I know that few people are earning 100 and few people are earning 200. And second statement says that average is 138. So I can apply my butterfly diagram, jungle rule 6, and you can find the ratio of people who are earning 100 and 200. This will be 38 and then this would be 62. So 62 people are earning rupees 100 and 38 people are earning rupees 200 in this company. We can answer that what percentage of 100 employees in a company earns more than rupees 100 per day? Answer would be 38%. They are not looking for the answer, but yes, if we combine both the statement, we are in the position to find the answer. So I'll select B, which says both statement 1 and 2 together are necessary to answer this question. Okay, one more from data sufficiency, and we know the drill for data sufficiency. There is a question and 2 statements to follow. Question is, from a bag containing only red, blue and green colored balls, a ball is picked at random. What is the probability that the ball is red colored? Since only one ball is picked at random, probability we are looking out for is R by N, where N equals R plus B plus G, total number of balls in the bag. We are looking out for this fraction. Now see whether we would be able to find the value of this fraction or not. Statement 1 says the probability that the ball drawn is either red or green, that means R by N or G by N, is 1 by 3. With this statement alone, we are not in the position to find the value of R by N. Statement 1 alone is not sufficient enough. Statement 2 says probability that the ball drawn is red or blue, that is R by N plus B by N, is 13 by 15. Again here, we don't have the value of B by N to find the value of R by N. Statement 2 alone is also not sufficient to find the answer. But if I combine these two statements, first thing, I know that R by N plus B by N plus G by N is equals to 1 because total probability is always 1. So if I combine these two statements, what I will get is R by N plus G by N plus R by N plus B by N, that is equals to 1, equals 1 by 3 plus 13 by 15, that is equals to 5 plus 13, 18, that is 1 plus 3 by 15. 1 cancel out, we can find the value of R by N. R by N in this case would be 3 by 15, that is 1 by 5. And with that, we can find the value of G by N also and B by N also. That means if I combine both the statement together, we are in the position to find the question's answer. Let us see where it is. Option B says both statement 1 and 2 together is necessary to answer the question. I'll go for option B. In the question, one statement is given which might have more than one parts, followed by two conclusions 1 and 2. You have to consider the statement to be true, even if it seems that it is at a variance with some commonly known facts. Fair enough. You have to decide which of the given conclusion, if any, follow from the given statement. We call it syllogisms or questions from deductive logic. and I'll always prefer drawing Venn diagrams to solve these kind of questions. Statement: all scientists are experts. So if this is the like Venn diagram for experts, then this is scientist. All scientists are experts. No master is an expert. That means it should be something here. These all are master which are not experts. So this will be a Venn diagram for the given statement. Now conclusion 1 says no scientist is the master. We can say that S and M are far away from each other. There is nothing common between S and M. No scientist is a master. Some masters are scientists. Some masters are scientists. Master and scientist are away from each other. How can some master be scientist? Where all scientists are experts and no master is an expert, then some master cannot be scientist. That means only conclusion 1 follows. And that is in option A. Okay, another one from deductive logic, and we know the drill for it. We have a statement and we need to identify whether this conclusion follows or not. And the very best process to do this is, let's draw Venn diagrams for the statement given. All A's are lazy. We have a set of lazy people and all A's are lazy. These all are A's. All A's are lazy. Some A's are not attentive. Not attentive. If this is the set of not attentive people, then some A's we can see are not attentive. Now conclusion 1 says some attentive are not lazy. Some attentive. This is a set of attentive people. If this is a set of all people, then this all is attentive people. And yes, some attentive people are not lazy. That is true. Conclusion 1 follows. Some lazy are not attentive. Here we can see this is the set of non-attentive people. And still we have some lazy people who are not attentive. Here we can see some lazy people who are not attentive. If not attentive is a set, then we have got some lazy people who are not attentive. Conclusion 2 follows. Now again, if you have some confusion on conclusion 1, let's see it once again. Some attentive. Attentive means a set which is negation to not attentive set. If this is the whole set, this is non-negation to not attentive. That means attentive. The set outside not attentive set is attentive. Then some attentive are not lazy, and this was the set of lazy people. So we can see we have common area to attentive and lazy people. That means some attentive are not lazy. The area outside the lazy area is not lazy people. So not lazy people and attentive people have something in common. Some attentive are not lazy. Conclusion 1 will also follow. Here both conclusion 1 and 2 shall follow. Again, one more question from deductive logic, and we know the drill. I would be following Venn diagrams again. Statement says, creative students are topper. Creative students, these students are toppers. Some dancers are creative students. So for dancer, we can have this. And here we can see some dancers are creative students. We can also have something like this. Creative students, toppers, dancers here, creative students. Some creative students are dancer or some dancers are creative students. Conclusion 1 says, some creative students are topper. Yes, we can see that some creative students are toppers because it's given that creative students are toppers. That means that all creative students are toppers. But why this word some? It is all. But when all is true, some become automatically true. Conclusion 1 shall follow. Conclusion 2 says some toppers are dancer. Yes, we can see that some toppers are dancer. Here also we can see that some toppers are dancers. That means conclusion 2 also follows. Both conclusion 1 and 2 follow in this particular question. Option D is the good pick. A few questions from verbal reasoning to follow. Pointing to a boy, Kamal said, we have Kamal here, I am married with his. That means this is the boy. Boy. It should look like a boy. With his younger brother who lives in Dubai. So, younger brother. This is brother, wife of younger brother of this man. That means, how is Kamal related to that boy? This particular man is elder brother of Kamal's husband. That means, Kamal, is wife of younger brother of this person. That means she is bhabhi or sister-in-law or as we call vadina of this particular man. So how is Kamal related to that boy? Sister-in-law. Option D fits in. Okay, another one from blood relations. Suresh's sister is wife of Ram. Ram is Rani's brother. Ram's father is Madhur. Let me start from here. Madhur children are Ram. Ram is Rani's brother. That means Ram is male. And Rani, we don't know about Rani, male or female. Because it's given Ram is Rani's brother. Now Suresh's sister is wife of Ram. Wife, brother is Suresh. Seetal is Ram's grandmother. Ram's grandmother, that means Madhur's mother, is Sheetal. Reema is Seetal's daughter-in-law. Seetal's daughter-in-law is Reema. Okay, so here Ram's wife can be Reema, this person. Rohit is Rani's brother. That means Madhur have got one more son. Rohit. How is Rohit related to Suresh? But here, Rima is Seetal's daughter-in-law. Rima can't be wife of Ram, isn't it? Rima is Madhur's wife because it is written daughter-in-law, not granddaughter-in-law. Now we are clear. How is Rohit related to Suresh? Rohit is brother of Ram's, and Suresh is brother of Ram's wife. That means Suresh is brother-in-law of Ram. And on that line, Suresh is brother-in-law, or Rohit is brother-in-law of Suresh. Since no other options fits in, it has to be brother-in-law, option B. Ronnie is standing in a line of students. He is standing at 36th position from behind. Maybe this is front and this is behind. He is at 36th position from behind. Including Ronnie, there are 96 students in the line. There are 96 students. What is Ronnie's position from the front? Now we have the simple drill for these kind of question, which is known as ranking test. Position from the front plus position from the behind minus 1 will be equals to total number of people in the line. If they are standing facing north, then we say that position from the left plus position from the right minus 1 is equals to total number of people in the line if we are looking out for this person's positions. Here we are looking out for Ronnie, this person's position. Position from the front is F, from behind is 36, minus 1 is equals to 96. F equals 96 minus 36 is 60 plus 1, that is 61. He is at the 61st position from the front. Option B fits in. Raman, Mukesh, Kishan and Anil are sitting around a table facing each other. Let's have a circular table. 4 people facing each other. This is right, left. This would be right, left. If he's facing inside, this is right of him, this is left, and left, this way, right. Okay, 4 people. They like different color, yellow, blue, red and black. Raman sits opposite to a person who likes black. Suppose this is Raman. Then this person likes black. Mukesh sits to the immediate right of a person who likes blue. Immediate right to black is this position, that means Mukesh is not here. Because this is black. He sits to the immediate right of a person who likes blue. If Raman like blue, Mukesh can be sitting here. Now, if this person likes blue, Mukesh can be liking black. But Mukesh cannot be here. Anil sits opposite to Kishan, who doesn't like yellow. The person who likes yellow is on the immediate left of a person who likes red. If Raman likes red, this person likes yellow. If this person likes red, then this person likes yellow, but this is black. That means these two can be the position. If this person likes red, then Raman would be liking yellow. Anil sits opposite to Kishan, who doesn't like yellow. So there, we should have Anil and Kishan at this position, because Anil and Kishan are sitting opposite to each other. We can have Anil here or Kishan here. Then it's sure that Mukesh is at this position. Now, sure position we have Raman, and here is Mukesh. Mukesh likes black. Mukesh sits to the immediate right of person who likes blue. Immediate right of person who likes blue. That means this person likes blue. A person who likes yellow is on the immediate left of person who likes red. That means left of this, only these two places red are left. The person who likes yellow, this will be yellow and this would be red. Anil sits opposite to Kishan, who doesn't like yellow. That means here is Kishan who like yellow. Here is Anil who likes yellow. Kishan doesn't likes yellow. And Raman likes red. Who likes red? Raman likes red. Six friends PQRSTU are going to college. T is only older than P and Q. Okay, age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. T is only older than P and Q. I'm arranging them like from oldest to youngest. Then T should be at the 4th position, P or Q at 5th position or 6th position. But shorter, that means we have height also. Shorter than only U, that means U is the tallest and T is at the 2nd position. Height wise, from tallest to shortest and from eldest to youngest, I'm fitting in. S is younger than U, okay, and taller than only P and Q. So S is taller than only P and Q. Here we can have this, but S is younger than U. Now these are the 3 position vacant for the age wise. S is younger than U. We can have US or US like this or US like this. We can have 3 options. S is younger than U in this also, in 2nd case also, and in 3rd case also. Then in that case, R remains. R should be at this position. Now, neither P is the youngest, P is not the youngest, that means Q is the youngest, and then P is at this position. So this would be PQ, PQ. Nor Q is the shortest. Q is not the shortest, that means P is the shortest. Here we should have R. As far as height is concerned, we have the perfect data with us. U is the tallest, P is the shortest, and this is the ranking. How many friends are there who occupy same position in both orders? These 3 are fixed. We know this is TPQ. But here they are not matching. It is SQP, TPQ. But for these 3 positions, we are still in confusion. This may also be correct, this may also be correct, this may also be correct. If I take this as correct, then one of them are on the same position. If this one is correct, then one of them are at the same position. Sorry, if the first one is correct, 2 of them are at second position. If second one is correct, then one of them is at same position. If third one is correct, then no one are at the same position. Do you think that we are in a position to actually identify that how many friends are there who occupy the same position. It says S is younger than U. U is elder than S. It can be at any place. These three, any one out of these three may be correct. And if that happens, we are not in the position to find the answer. I'll select D, can't be determined.